Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started shortly. Please share your name and where you are joining us from in the chat box. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Competencies and Focus, Sustainability. My name is Abby Nellis, and I'm a Senior Associate with CADCA's Public Health Programs team here at CADCA. CADCA, in partnership with the Center for Public Health System Science at Washington University in St. Louis, is excited to present today's webinar, which is the first webinar in our 18-part webinar series on CADCA's core competencies for coalitions. Next slide. Before we dive in, I just wanted to do a quick overview of CADCA. Using a community-led approach, CADCA is dedicated to empowering coalitions and health departments across the globe with the tools, expertise, and support needed to drive positive change in their communities. Through top-tier training services and an evidence-informed technical assistance system, we help build your capacity to implement best practices that improve community health outcomes. To explore more about our work and subscribe to our weekly newsletter, visit cadca.org. Next slide. I'm sure we all are familiar with Zoom by now, but I'd like to go over a few housekeeping notes. All participants are muted by default, so for general comments, please use the chat box. We will have a Q&A portion at the end of the presentation, so for any specific questions for the presenters, please use the Q&A box. You will receive a post-webinar email with the recording of the webinar, slides, and an evaluation survey. We kindly ask you to fill out the survey. Letters of attendance are given only upon completion of the evaluation survey. Next slide. And now I'd like to introduce our presenters. Today's webinar will be led by our valued partners, Jessica Price and Kim Pruitt for the Center for Public Health System Science at Washington University in St. Louis. Jessica Price is the evaluation manager at CPHSS and oversees evaluation and implementation science projects, including CADCA tools and manuals, Reach St. Louis, and the Rural Communities Opioid Response Program. Her areas of interest include community engaged and participatory evaluation, developmental evaluation, and qualitative and mixed methods research. Kim Pruitt manages the sustainability projects at CPHSS. She facilitates workshops and webinars for public health, clinical care, and social service programs throughout the United States on how to assess and plan for sustainability. She also works with groups to administer the Program Sustainability Assessment Tool and the Clinical Sustainability Assessment Tool, collects and analyzes data related to sustainability planning and assessment, and provides technical assistance and training for sustaintool.org. Thank you both for joining us today. Jessica, I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Abby. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you. We are so excited to have you here with us as we kick off the first webinar in this amazing series. It's going to last about a year and a half. I want to start with a little bit of background on who we are and what brought us together with CADCA to this point to be ready to share all of this information with you. So Abby already did a great job of introducing us. We're from the Center for Public Health System Science. We're a longtime partner of CADCA's, working together on bringing the latest in implementation science and prevention science to CADCA's work with coalitions. Our mission is to change systems to create healthier communities through research, evaluation, and translation. So our goals for today's webinar is to first present to you some background and purpose on CADCA's coalition competencies, where they came from, where we're headed. We're going to introduce for the first time the sustainability competency, And then you'll have the opportunity to gain some insight and expert examples from Kim Pruitt on sustainability and her experience in the field. So CADCA's coalition competencies, these were launched for the first time at Forum this year. You might have been there for that presentation. This is the culmination of several years of work that we have done in partnership with CADCA to look at the best examples of research and examples from the field on what are the core competencies that are needed for coalitions to be successful and to make an impact in their community. Through that process, we developed a set of 18 competencies. We're currently working on a 19th one, and they're divided into 3 domains. There's the operations domain, prevention, and community. The competencies were all developed through a 4-step process that is outlined from the Federal Employment and Training Administration for best practices in competency development. We went through a lengthy process of gathering background information. This included nearly 200 research articles. This included expert interviews with people across the United States and around the world. We interviewed people in urban areas, rural areas, people in Asia, Africa, and South America who are all expert, longtime coalition leaders to gain their insights on what coalitions need to be successful, what the areas are for growth, and what are already areas where coalitions are doing really well. All of that was used to develop our initial model of competencies. We continued to gather more feedback through CADCA staff, trainers, coalition members, and we refined that model over the course of more than a year to get to where we are today. So today we are focusing on sustainability, and this webinar series will continue to focus on one competency at a time. Each competency really is the work of, it can be the work of a career. These are substantial and important competencies. And I appreciate the opportunity with CADCA to really focus in on each one. So today we're talking about sustainability. It falls under the operations domain, along with a number of other competencies like coalition structure, membership, leadership. In the coming months, we'll be talking about those as well. But today we introduce sustainability. As you start to interact with the CADCA's coalition competencies, you'll see that each competency was developed in a similar format. They fit onto one page. We have a definition, we have a summary of the evidence, and then we have the knowledge, skills, and abilities that were identified through expert interviews and through the literature to be what make up this competency area. And we developed this to be useful, to be easy to engage with, to be accessible, and we hope that you find it to be that way as you start to interact with it. So we're going to dive into the sustainability competency for a few minutes. Sustainability in the CADCA's coalition competency is defined as maintaining the coalition and its achievements over time. And we summarized a lot of literature about sustainability and why it's important for coalitions. And this may be one where it feels kind of obvious that, you have to plan for sustainability, that you need this to be successful. But we hope that this is also an opportunity to think about sustainability maybe a little more broadly than you have before. So the evidence that we brought into this competency looks at things like how sustainability increases coalitions' ability to have activities and to have longevity. It helps them plan for long-term success by mapping out resources and achievements. Sustainability includes multiple domains. We have a list here, including environmental support, funding sustainability, partnerships, organizational capacity. Sustainability also, when there's a shared understanding of sustainability and a shared approach within a coalition, this can ease the planning process and increase coalition success. And then the final point of evidence that we wanted to bring into this webinar is understanding that capacity building both contributes to and results from sustainability. So it really becomes a loop where sustainability is feeding capacity and capacity is feeding increased ability in sustainability. So after summarizing the evidence, we broke down this competency into knowledge, skills, and abilities. And again, all of these come from the literature and are backed up by the expert interviews that we did throughout this process. So what is the knowledge that a coalition needs to be competent in the area of sustainability? They need planning process knowledge, short and long-term planning process. They need coalition background, understanding current capacity, funding, timeframes, goals, and they need knowledge of assessment, knowledge of methods and tools to be able to assess strengths and weaknesses and build from where they're at. For skills, what are the skills that coalitions need to be competent in the area of sustainability? Group facilitation, planning strategies, leadership development, funding diversification, and communication. All of these are the skills that are going to help coalitions be successful in planning for and achieving sustainability. And then finally, what are the abilities that are critical to being competent in this area? So vision and goal setting, partnerships, securing collaboration, effective data use, and capacity building. All right, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kim to dive into her area of expertise, share with us some great examples and some great insights. So I'm going to stop sharing so that Kim can bring up her slides.
Okay, I believe we have it up. We see it? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks for passing things over, Jessica, and thank you, Abby, too, for the introduction today. And thank you all for being here and listening in today. I'm excited to have the opportunity to share with you all and really appreciate being invited to speak. So, like Jessica and Abby said, I work with programs and practices to help them understand their sustainability capacity and plan to improve it. So today I'll be sharing about our research and our experiences working with organizations over the past several years. And so Jessica shared some background information about our center and the research that we do. So I won't spend a lot of time here. Just want to note that at the Center for Public Health System Science, all of our work aims to achieve impact in our communities. And our work in sustainability came about through an existing partnership with CDC's Office on Smoking and Health. So years ago, funding cuts came through for state tobacco control programs, and states were scrambling to figure out how to sustain their public health programs with much less funding than they had before. And what CDC came to notice is that some programs were sustaining even with less funds, while others were really struggling. And it didn't seem to be related to the funding level. Some of the least funded programs were able to survive. So CDC wanted to better understand those factors that contributed to some of the more sustainable programs, and they commissioned our research center to investigate. So since 2010, our team has developed, refined, and distributed our sustainability framework and supporting materials. Our teams worked on a local, national, and global scale to support sustainability of programs and organizations, each with unique challenges and resources to draw from. And although our roots are in tobacco prevention and cessation, the scope of our sustainability work has really expanded, and we work with diverse public health, clinical care, and social service programs. So through our research, we learned that while funding is important, it's only a part of a much bigger picture. So in fact, funding is one piece of our 8-domain program sustainability framework. The framework can help demystify sustainability by identifying 8 organizational and contextual domains that can help build capacity for maintaining a program or a coalition. So organizations can then be proactive about building sustainability by focusing on strengthening in these different domains. We define program sustainability as the ability to maintain programming and its benefits over time. The definition is intentionally broad. And for us, the term program can refer to a specific set of activities that are already formalized into a program within an organization, or it could refer to the whole organization. And for today, when I use the term program, you can think of it as your coalition. So in this way, our definition of sustainability closely aligns with CADCA's, which is the ability to maintain a coalition and its achievements over time. So what we focus on is improving capacity for sustainability, really the process of strengthening the structures and processes to ensure that a program or coalition can strategically leverage its resources to weather changes in things like funding, leadership, and environmental climate. We all want our coalitions and their good work to continue, and we hope the benefits of the work will be sustained. And that does take active focus and planning. We use a 3-step process for sustainability planning. The first step of that process is building your understanding of the factors that impact sustainability by learning about the domains in the framework. And I'll be talking more about those today. The next step is to really think about your program's current sustainability capacity. There are lots of different ways that you can do this. We usually use an assessment called the Program Sustainability Assessment Tool, or sometimes I'll refer to it as the PSAT for short. This isn't the only option, but we do use it because it was built off of our sustainability framework. It can be used with up to 12 staff and key partners to assess any program, organization, or coalition. And research highlights the importance of creating an action plan to move sustainability progress forward. So the final step is to create a sustainability action plan focused on increasing your coalition's capacity for sustainability. Okay, now I'm going to go back to revisit that first step of understanding. I'll talk about our program sustainability framework. And it does align in many ways with CADCA's sustainability core competency that Jessica was speaking about. I'm going to share some information about each of our domains. And as I do, I want you to think about how they relate to your coalition's efforts. So ask yourself 2 questions in particular. How important is each domain to your work, the work of your coalition? And what power does your coalition have to modify or improve capacity in that domain? So the first is environmental support, which is the notion that you need to have a supportive internal and external climate for your coalition. Do people care about and support your work? Are state policies in line with your efforts? And if not, what can you do to gain that support? Do you have champions for your work internally and at all levels externally? Internally, we think more about higher up leadership and staff. Are they aware of all that your coalition is trying to do? Do they make sure that your coalition's priorities are on the agenda at meetings? And are they allocating resources to your coalition? Externally, this domain focuses on champions and the support of your community. Do you have champions for your work at all levels? When I think about external champions, I'm really thinking about who are the people that are talking about you and the good work that you do when you aren't in the room. People that are sharing your story and sharing, promoting the work that you do. Now, funding is next, and that can be a big challenge for many initiatives. We rely on funding for almost everything, providing necessary staff, infrastructure, time, resources. But what happens if funding changes? So similar to CADCA's sustainability skill, we encourage diversification of funding. For example, are there grants that you can apply for? Could you get an extension on a current grant? Are federal agencies willing to contribute? Are there partners that might have or know about funding opportunities? Are there staff, resources, or space that you could share with partners to encourage cost sharing? We would want you to explore the whole spectrum here. Oftentimes, the programs that we work with want to focus on funding, but recognize that only focusing on funding doesn't actually get them too far. So we do really encourage groups to think about steps that they can take in some of the other domains that I'm talking about today that will help maximize the likelihood of obtaining funding down the road. Now, partnerships are one of CADCA's sustainability abilities, and we believe partnerships play a key role in growing the overall reach and impact of a program. Partners can range from very informal, touch base as needed relationships to formal contractual collaborations. Learning from partners and working together can generate new ideas, provide opportunities to share resources, and reduce costs. And having strategic partnerships can open doors for others to support your efforts if it no longer makes sense for your coalition to sustain it on its own. Organizational capacity is next. That refers to having the internal resources to effectively manage your efforts to reach your goals. You might have lots of different programs or initiatives going on at once, and you'll need to consider whether you have the resources to carry them all out, and if you'll continue to have the resources to carry them out if funding changes. If not, what will you do to ensure that you can continue your work? Is leadership supportive? Do you have enough staff to carry out program goals? Do you have a communication system in place that lets everyone know about your successes as well as your challenges? Working in this domain might look like reviewing current resources and expertise or redefining roles within your efforts. Or maybe it's realizing that you don't have a strong team in place for internal communications or maybe for your evaluation, and you want to work toward expanding some of those efforts. Program evaluation is next. And this is the process of systematically and objectively assessing your program's strengths and weaknesses to inform planning. You know, evaluation provides you with data to talk about your successes and really show that you're making an impact. You want to make sure that you're evaluating short and long-term successes and capturing the impact of the work that you're doing in an intentional way. Conducting program evaluation is also important to be able to share with the community and with your partners. To get people interested in and invested in the work that you're doing, they need to see the difference that you're making in the community. Now, the counterpart to evaluation is adaptation. So that involves taking action to continuously improve your coalition activities and to ensure their ongoing relevance and effectiveness. Here, we like to focus on quality improvement and adapting to external forces. So for quality improvement, are you responding to those evaluation results and making changes as needed? And with external forces, are you adapting to environmental changes such as political leadership, partnership turnover? And are you up to date on new science, evidence-based interventions, and best practices? Here, we really emphasize flexibility. We never advocate for sustaining everything exactly as it is now, but adapting to the needs of your coalition and any challenges that come up. So next in the framework is communications, another of CADCA's sustainability skills. So do people know what you do? And do they care about what you do? And would they care if your program went away? For this domain, it's important to think about communications both internally and externally. Internal communications can be essential for securing resources, staff, and time within the coalition. Leadership needs to know what you're working on, how it's impacting the community, and how it's helping to reach the coalition's goals. For external communications, sharing information with the public and stakeholders and partners can go a long way towards securing funding, partnerships, and support overall. And our last sustainability domain is strategic planning, which involves using structured processes to guide your program's direction, goals, and strategies. You know, without strategic direction toward long-term goals, programs can sometimes find themselves just reacting to day-to-day demands, environmental pressures, and funding opportunities instead of moving forward strategically toward a well-detailed objective. So in our model, sustainability is about getting beyond focusing only on funding. It's about using the procedures that you've put in place to strengthen your infrastructure so that you're prepared to deal with challenges that come your way. All of the domains are interconnected. So that means working to improve in one domain should have a spillover effect and improve other domains as well. So say you're working on communications, that can improve your environmental support because people are learning about all the great things that you're doing to reduce substance use and improve public health in your community. And now they want to support your efforts, which could impact your funding. And there are all kinds of connections like this. It's really up to you to think about the domain that you would want to focus on to get the most impact for your program. So, like I said earlier, our center developed an assessment tool from that framework. We call it the Program Sustainability Assessment Tool. In 2014, we developed a website to make the PSAT and sustainability planning resources available to the public. The assessment's been completed more than 13,000 times through the website to assess local, national, and international programs, practices, and organizations. The assessment is user-friendly, only takes about 10 minutes to complete, and you answer questions that address each of the sustainability domains that I just talked about. I don't want to go too in-depth into all of the things about the tool. I just want to make sure folks know that it is something that's available. I know in coalitions, we wear a lot of different hats. And so if it's something that would be helpful to you in another program, I just want to make sure that everyone knows it's available. So when a person or a group takes the program sustainability assessment tool, they will receive a results report, an individual or a group report, depending on who takes it. Both reports show an average score for each of the domains and an overall sustainability score. One thing that we want to make sure folks understand is that a low score does not mean that something is unsustainable or bad. Numbers are just a way for you to conceptualize your efforts across those different domains relative to each other. So you can start thinking about where you might want to focus as you work on increasing your sustainability capacity. And so you can use those reports to reflect on your program and on sustainability in new ways. Groups often use the report to facilitate a team discussion, and that can also inform program planning. When we work with groups, we help them develop a sustainability plan, use a template similar to the one that's pictured here. But this is just one approach. And while sustainability planning does not have to look the same for every group, we do recommend several key components to incorporate in a sustainability plan. We encourage groups to choose a sustainability domain or area to focus on, something like partnerships or communications. And that focus can then guide the development of a SMART objective. I'm sure you're probably all familiar with having something that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. So your SMART objective guides plan development and can help you make the plan actionable so that you can break it down further into steps that are specific actions that you're going to take to reach your objective. For each step, you'll want to include who is responsible for seeing that the work gets done, any non-financial resources needed for the step, and how you'll know when you've succeeded, as well as a due date. But keep in mind, even the best laid plans might have some snags, and that's okay. We don't think of a sustainability plan as being something etched in stone because we know life happens and we need to be dynamic and respond. And so a sustainability plan should be viewed as a living document that's updated as things change. So as I mentioned, we have done a lot of work with tobacco prevention groups. So I wanted to share a sustainability planning example with you. The Louisiana Tobacco Prevention Team is a group that we worked with actually several years ago now. But when we worked with them, they had been working on strategic planning. And so those strategic planning discussions highlighted the importance of improving coordination among their partners and their shared goals. And so the team developed a sustainability action plan that was focused on partnerships. They ended up creating a survey to gather information from partners and their organizations about their activities, message dissemination, and gaps in services. So Louisiana would use those results to identify duplicative efforts and then help streamline resources for advancing the state's tobacco prevention goals. This on the screen is a quote from the Tobacco Cessation and Prevention Manager, who said, as a direct result, we were able to identify gaps and opportunities for collaboration in order to streamline work and advance tobacco control efforts across all organizations. So the sustainability process really helped Louisiana adopt a more unified approach to their comprehensive statewide tobacco control efforts. And it inspired the planning team to transform their strategic planning group into a formal coalition, which is now known as the Tobacco Free Louisiana Coalition. They felt the alignment of the sustainability and strategic planning activities was critical. And by coordinating those two processes, the team was able to develop complementary plans and spearhead the formation of the coalition. The Louisiana team is celebrating the start of the coalition's 9th year this April and continues to recognize sustainability as an ongoing process. I will say, beyond engaging stakeholders on multiple levels, it can also help to have one or two people on the team who really champion sustainability. And that was a strength for Louisiana. They had a sustainability champion at the state tobacco control program, and also one that worked at a partner organization. And this really helped drive the plan and keep one another and the entire team accountable for making progress on the plan. And so I do have some key takeaways just from some of our experiences over the years working with different public health and social service organizations on sustainability planning. We do recommend choosing one domain. There's 8 there. They all make a difference. But we want you to think about, the place to start. So tackling all 8 domains at the same time can be very overwhelming. And so we really found that focusing in one area helps programs meet their sustainability plan goals and maintain momentum. But also, building capacity in one domain can lead to gains in other domains as well. We also recommend engaging partners and staff at all levels when you can or when it's appropriate, from the beginning and throughout, as this increases buy-in and can streamline the efforts and resources. But that requires communication. So you need to think about what communication channels work best for your team and how you might maintain consistent contact. This can also help with accountability, and it might be helpful to plan regular meetings or check-ins on progress. Some programs have also found it useful to align their sustainability plan with other program plans and activities. For example, programs can coordinate sustainability planning with strategic planning to create complementary plans. And it's also important to be realistic about available resources and what you're trying to accomplish. So reaching those different steps and seeing tangible progress in a sustainability plan can really help keep momentum going. But it's important to note that not everything always goes according to plan. So you'll want to monitor your progress and revise the plan in response to changes in the environment, staff, or funding changes. We also recommend, reassessing your sustainability capacity and revisiting the plan to better understand program progress and changes. Okay, and I hope that you'll feel free to contact us for any additional information, or if you're looking for any kind of support around sustainability. And I'm going to stop sharing. I know we'll have time for questions later. Okay.
Thank you, Kim. That was wonderful. And we are going to have plenty of time for questions later. So please, everyone, be thinking about all of the questions that you have for Kim. Abby, I'm going to share our slides again for you to pick up from here.
So you may be asking yourself, what's next and what actionable steps can I take to enhance my coalition's ability to plan for sustainability? Next slide. Well, here at CACA, we focus on this crucial competency during our National Leadership Forum and Mid-Year Training Institute, and through various coalition services training programs. Additionally, sustainability is covered in our National Coalition Academy. Next slide. In fact, as you can see on this slide, sustainability is explored in depth during week 3 of the NCA. So you can learn more about how to plan for sustainability through various offerings at CADCA. Next slide. We are going to go ahead and move into our Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, please feel free to add them into the Q&A box. And I know we usually get this question, but you will get a recording and an email with the recording after this as well. And it will be posted on the CACA website. While we're moving into our Q&A, I'm just going to go ahead and put the evaluation QR code up so that you guys can either scan that, or I'm going to drop the evaluation link in the chat as well. But please note that letters of attendance are given only upon completion of the evaluation survey. So let's go ahead and move on to the Q&A, and please remember, put your questions in the Q&A box. It does look like we have one question or two questions in there currently. Is the PEACE SAT tool free to use?
Yes, it is free to use. It's available at sustaintool.org. And yeah, free to use for an individual or for groups of up to 12 people.
Thank you, Kim. And then we are starting a coalition from scratch. At what point in the process should we start sustainability planning?
That is a great question. And the truth is, we like to think of sustainability in a similar vein to evaluation, where it's never too early to start thinking about sustainability. And so, you know, as you're building your coalition, knowing, you know, what are the important things to keep it going, like having that information in mind as you're building is only going to help make your coalition stronger. And, you know, yes, starting to think about it at the very beginning, but also continuing throughout. So we always hope that people are assessing their capacity for sustainability, at least on a yearly basis, to kind of understand how things change and make changes to their work, you know, based on their capacity at that time. So it's never too early.
Thank you, Kim. If we have multiple coalitions that we oversee, can we use the PSAT tool to see how they are doing as an aggregate with sustainability across the board?
You can. I think if you're thinking about using the PSAT tool, you want to make sure that you know what you want to assess. So if you want to assess all of them across, everyone that's taking the assessment needs to know that as well. So like that's the most important piece, is to really clarify, like, what is it that I want to know about our sustainability capacity, and make sure that everyone taking the assessment is on the same page and thinking about that, all of the questions that they're responding to in those terms. So as long as there's good communication about what you're assessing, yes, it can be anything from a very specific program to multiple coalitions, certainly.
Yeah. And then the next question, how can I learn more about the National Coalition Academy? So if you want to email me, we actually have a cohort that we have just opened up for our a virtual cohort. And so if you want to email me at anellis@cadca.org, which I've dropped in the chat as well, I would be happy to get you in contact with our training team. And then next question, we only have one part-time staff for a coalition. Although we have a strong cross-sector representation, the work falls on this staff person. Any recommendations on how to navigate this?
I don't know if that one is for me specifically, but I mean, to take a shot at that one, I would say certainly try to incorporate partners and see where they can, sort of step up and support the work. And Jessica, if you have other ideas, please feel free to jump in.
I think you said it really well, of looking for support where you can, leveraging resources you have in creative ways to make the most of that person's time.
Next question, and I do see we have a hand raised. So if you have a question, please put it either in the Q&A or in the chat. And then does your team or organization provide direct consultation to coalitions with deficiencies based on their results?
So we do provide consultation to groups that are looking to sort of understand their sustainability in a different way and think about ways that they want to increase it. Absolutely, we work individually with them. Also all of our resources are available for free through the website. So it's not something that you would have to have resources to like gain that knowledge or support. But yeah, I think a lot of times when we take an assessment, we look at the scores and we think, okay, what's the lowest? That's where I have to start. And I think for sustainability planning, it feels different to me because, maybe you scored low in an area because it's a real challenge for you right now. And maybe if you want to start making a change or increasing capacity, the lowest score isn't the right place to begin. Sometimes it's a place where you already have some momentum or some resources, and you can grow or expand them. So really, we encourage groups to think about not necessarily like what's the lowest score on your assessment, but what's important for your program or organization, and where can you really move the needle or begin to make a change.
Thank you, Kim. And then also, CACA does offer, individual support through our coalition development services as well. And so we'd be happy to help with that as well. Next question is, I started on December 2nd, and I'm trying to rebuild and increase the number of members in our coalition. We currently have 13 members, but I would like to double or triple that number. Is that a good idea or not?
Abby, is that more of a question for you?
I think sure, we can answer this one. I think it really depends on what your what your goals are. So whenever you're doing your coalition outreach, being really intentional and thinking through, these are the stakeholders that we currently need. This is the data that we need collected, or these are the sectors that we don't have represented throughout our community. And then being intentional about, okay, here's how I can either outreach to those sectors or to those people, or here's who I know who is connected to those sectors or to those people. And so having people at the table for the sake of having people at the table isn't necessarily the best idea, but being super intentional and thinking through who you need at the table and then outreach that way. And then the next question is, what is a good way to keep partners engaged in between monthly meetings? Meeting attendance tends to decline after a few gatherings.
That is a tough one. And I know that's something that a lot of groups, struggle with. And I think here you want to really be thinking about that communication domain and what's the best way to keep people updated on what's going on and where they can contribute, and ways that the group is making a difference. So making sure that you have that good communication and the best channel to reach your coalition members. Those would be my suggestions, but of course, Jessica or Abby, you might have other ideas as well.
I'll just add one thought of, thinking about the ways that you can make it a very bi-directional relationship and bi-directional benefits. And so what are incentives that people have for participating? What are we obviously want to think about what do people contribute to your coalition, but what can participating in your coalition contribute to their work or their community or their lives? And finding those ways to build a really mutual benefit can help to increase engagement.
Thank you, Jessica and Kim. Next question is, what is a good way to keep partners engaged in between? Oh, sorry, we just answered that. Will the presentation and slides be posted on the CACA website? Yes, all the presentation and then some of the slides will be available on the CACA website. You will also get an email after. All registrants will get an email with the recording and the majority of the slides as well. The next question is, I really want the coalition to be more active in the community, and I have stressed that in the 3 meetings that I have held so far. So I think this is a question about how to get the community more engaged.
Yeah, and this is, I think, a follow. I think this is the same person we were just chatting with about in like expanding membership. So just to tie in that context. But Kim or Abby, I'll let you jump in.
I would say that I apologize. I missed some of Jessica's answer because I was looking through the Q&A chat, but I would say the best thing that you really could do is to find someone who is really involved in the community, who can really be that trusted messenger through the community. And so finding someone that you can recruit to be a part of your coalition, or maybe they're already a part of the coalition, who can go out there and really get the community engaged and get them interested in the work, if that's what you're having some trouble with, getting that community engagement. And then can you dive a little deeper on how a low score is not an indication of low sustainability probability?
Sure. Yeah. For us with the PSAT, we think of the score as really just a snapshot of where your coalition is right there that day when you took it, and things are always changing. So sure, there are changes in scores. Things things that are higher, we would consider to be more sustainable. And that's why we think about the ability to like increase capacity in some of those areas. But I think what I wanted to get across was that just because you have a low score, it doesn't mean you can't sustain, especially if you have just a low score in one area. There are a lot of different things that impact the sustainability of an organization or a coalition. And so just being concerned about one of the areas, it shouldn't be something to set off the alarm bells. It's there's lots of ways that you can work and lots of different areas that you can work to increase capacity to support the work that you're doing.
And then the next question, please reshare the 8 domain slide again. So Jessica, if we could just maybe pull up the 8 slides domain slide again. If we have it.
Yeah, Kim, are you okay sharing that again? I'll stop sharing this presentation or.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And it's also, everything is on sustaintool.org. But let me.
Yeah. And I mean, I know you're sharing the slides after this presentation, but I can share a handout or something if that's helpful too, that you're welcome to share with folks. Just gotta get myself back.
And then while you're getting that pulled up, I'll go ahead and share something that was put in the Q&A box. So it says, to encourage attendance and participation, we have a guest speaker each coalition meeting. It encourages our community partners to share, and our coalition staff rotate in every few months to share grant program updates with the community. So then the next question is, we have struggled with keeping students engaged after graduation. Do you have any suggestions to keep them engaged in coalition activities into adulthood?
So I think that in some ways speaks a little bit to what we were talking about before, potentially, where, what can you offer to young adults that will benefit them, especially at a time of a lot of transition. They're learning and growing and figuring things out. I think that the more that you can figure out how to align with their goals and helping them get the things they need out of participation, that can help with increasing their participation.
And then we do have our youth leadership team here at CATCA. And so if you want to email youthleadership@cadca.org, which I'll drop that into the chat as well. Or you can email me and I can get it passed on to our youth team, but they will be happy to answer that question and help you think through some ways to get and keep youth engaged past graduation. That is all of the questions that we have. So we'll go ahead and pull up our last couple of slides. But as we conclude the webinar, we just want to give a big thanks to Jessica and to Kim again for sharing their work and insights. And we want to thank the webinar attendees for your participation. And then we just, next slide, please. And please mark your calendars for our upcoming webinars in the series on May 15th. We'll dive into the topic of evaluation, and on June 10th, we'll focus on internal communication. So keep an eye on your inbox for the registration link, and we'll also be posting those on the CATCA website as well. Next slide. And then if you have any questions about today's session or where you can find sustainability at CATCA, please feel free to contact me at anellis@cadca.org, or any other questions about these presentations, please feel free to reach out to Kim or to Jessica. And then thank you again for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.